A woman named Edie who, at the suggestion of her sister, has decided to visit a therapist. Edie appears downcast, making it exceedingly challenging for her to connect with others. She now prefers not to burden anyone with her issues and chooses to face her sorrow alone. Edie decided to venture far from the city to a remote location. Her sister, Emma, kept calling her, so Edie discarded her phone in the trash. The journey was long, but Edie was determined. Surrounded by stunning scenery, she deviated from the main road to venture deeper into the woods. The landlord, Colt, showed her the property. The area around the cabin consisted of hunting grounds and a nature preserve. Edie asked Colt for a favor. She needed someone to relocate her car. In Colt's opinion, staying here without a car was ill-advised. However, Edie reassured him that she could manage it. Edie was now completely on her own. She inspected the cabin and the barn where the firearm was stored. Late into the night, Edie hauled her belongings into the house. As there was no electricity in the cabin, she had to rely on a flashlight at night. Edie couldn't sleep due to the unsettling sounds of nature. In the morning, she decided to tidy up the cabin. She had brought only canned food with her. Edie had to cut her own firewood, and she was not skilled at it. This effort even caused blisters on her hands. She reminisced about how her sister had tried to persuade her to live together. Edie couldn't fathom why she was still alive, and it felt like excruciating torment. While Edie wept, Emma hugged her. The following day, Edie went to fetch water. The river's current was strong, and the container was swept away, forcing Edie to leap into the water to retrieve it. As promised, Colt found a man who agreed to move her car. Edie decided to go fishing, recalling how her son and husband used to engage in this activity. Later, she wandered through the woods, sinking deeper into her memories. Back at the cabin, Edie intended to light the stove. It felt as though the sun was embracing her during the thunderstorm at night, and the rain began to fall. The roof began to leak during the day. The rain persisted, and Edie saw her dearly departed husband in front of her, a presence no longer physically there. When she retired to bed, it still felt as though he was beside her. Edie couldn't hold back the tears. The next day, she continued to tidy up and found the box, but she never dared to open it. At night, she heard wild animals running around the house. It was getting colder, and it was snowing. When Edie went to the toilet, she heard growling outside. Through the gap between the boards, she saw a huge bear. Edie was very frightened, and the beast went into the cabin. After a while, Edie dared to come out. Everything in the cabin was upside down, and the bear had eaten almost all the food. Edie had to make a fire outside to keep warm. There wasn't much food left, so Edie set a trap, hoping to catch some small animals. Despite the cold, she went fishing, and it became easier for her to chop wood. But the stove couldn't save her from the cold. In addition, the Alaskan canned food was gone. Edie had no choice but to take her gun and go hunting in the woods. Suddenly, she saw 2 moose, but she had no luck. Edie returned to the cabin in tears, realizing that she was left here without food all alone. Edie didn't want to live anymore, but she remembered her sister, and it gave her strength. Emma was the only person who kept Edie from doing something rash. She managed to find some food, but it wasn't enough. The night got even colder. Lying on the floor, Edie remembered her happy family. Suddenly, the wind woke her up, and a terrible snowstorm began. Edie went outside anyway. When she came back, she was completely exhausted. Suddenly, There was a knock at the door. He called for help. The man and woman brought Edie to her senses and warmed her up. While the woman cared for her, the man taped up the windows. They also stayed in the cabin for the night and stoked the stove. Edie came to her senses. Her rescuers' names were Miguel and Alava. It turns out that Alava is a nurse. They convinced Edie to go to the doctor, but she refused. Alava had to go back to town, and Miguel promised that he would stay and look after Edie. He decided to spend the night in his car, and in the morning, he made breakfast and helped Edie get up. She was having a hard time eating, so Miguel started spoon-feeding her. In the afternoon, Edie fell asleep again, and when she had recovered her strength, she decided to get to know her savior. It turned out that he was out hunting and noticed the smoke from the chimney. When Miguel returned, the smoke was gone, and this scene puzzled him. Later, Miguel went into town to buy food. Edie was already feeling much better. In the afternoon, Miguel chopped firewood, and it was getting warmer outside. Edie was finally able to wash properly. In the evening, Alava paid them a visit. She still insisted on Edie being hospitalized, but since Edie refused, Alava conducted some tests right there. Alava worried about why Edie was alone in this cabin without a cell phone. Edie replied that it was her conscious choice. After a while, Miguel brought back the results of the tests, revealing that Edie's health was perfectly fine. She invited her new acquaintance for coffee and thanked him for his kindness. Edie confessed that she came to the cabin because she didn't want to be around people. She offered to give Miguel money, but he refused to accept it. Miguel offered to teach her how to hunt, and Edie decided to accept the offer. She also asked him not to tell her anything about the outside world. Hunting lessons began, and at first, Edie didn't succeed, but she wasn't going to give up. In addition to hunting, Edie and Miguel went fishing. Edie was also able to strengthen the roof of the hut. That day, they went hunting together again, and this time Edie succeeded in catching some game. Miguel showed her what to do with it, and they brought the elk back to the cabin. Edie learned how to set traps and already hunted game on her own. Now she slept soundly at night and read books during the day, adding to her knowledge of nature. One day, Edie began to loosen the ground to plant a vegetable garden. Miguel visited her again, and this time, he brought his dog, Potter. Edie confessed that during the week Miguel had been away, she had not said a word. Later, they went into the woods to pick berries. Miguel told her that he was in charge of water reservations for people who did not have access to running water. When Edie asked if he had any family, Miguel said that his wife and daughter had died in a car accident 8 years earlier. Edie mentioned that she had a family too. Toward evening, they roasted meat over a fire. Miguel asked his friend to tell how she saw her future. All Edie wants now is to be closer to nature. At some point, Edie realized that Miguel tried to find out something about her through the internet, and she didn't like it very much. So she left for the cabin in the evening. Edie sat by the fire alone, and soon, Miguel arrived again and invited her to go hunting. Edie asked for his forgiveness for her behavior during the day. They wandered through the woods in search of game, and in the evening, they sang an old song by the fire. One day, Miguel handed her a drawing of his niece. After a long time, Edie opened that same box and pulled out a paper. She handed it to Miguel. He said that he would have to go away for a long time and asked her to look after Potter. Left alone, Edie opened the box again, finding pictures of her happy family. Miguel stopped the car to unfold the paper, which turned out to be a child's drawing. Looking at the pictures, Edie cried as she missed her son and husband very much. Edie also cherished her sister, Emma, who always supported her. Against all odds, Edie decided to hang the pictures and drawings on the wall. In the evening, she took an outdoor bath. With no one around, Edie continued to lead a life away from people, feeling at peace of mind. Her only company was Potter. Edie was in complete unity with nature, and days passed. She didn't want to go back to her old life because she felt much more alone among people than here. The only one she really missed was Miguel. A long time passed, and he still wasn't back. Edie was worried, so she took everything she needed with her and decided to hit the road. She walked along the river and through the trees, with Potter faithfully following behind her. Finally, Edie reached the town on foot, and everything here was already alien to her. Despite her anxiety, she went into a cafe and asked the waitress if there was a hospital nearby. Edie paid a visit to the hospital and went to the front desk, asking if a nurse named Alava worked there. The last time Edie had seen her was 2 years ago, to Miguel's house. Edie knocked, and the door was opened by Miguel's late wife's sister. It turned out that Miguel was seriously ill. He really hoped that his friend would come down from the mountain to visit him. Miguel had throat cancer, which he didn't notice in time, and then it was too late. He was very happy to see his friend and thanked her for everything. Edie could not hold back her tears, for Miguel was the one who had given her the will to live. If it wasn't for him, she wouldn't have wanted to stay in this world. Miguel asked Edie to pick up his phone because all his favorite music was on it. They held hands. Miguel said that he had been driving at the moment of the accident, and he had been drinking a lot at the time. Edie, in turn, said that her husband, Adam, and son, Drew, died during a concert when some man opened fire. Miguel cried after thanking Alava. Edie left and sat on the swing until morning. For the first time in a long time, Edie used the phone and called her sister, Emma. Emma couldn't believe she was hearing her voice again.